Hello everybody, and welcome to this, my final weekly Astro and Tarot report coming from England, where I've spent the last 8 months of my life. Maybe less. Who knows? No, it's 8 months. I am returning to the United States in a few days. I have just gone back from being in Spain with one of my nearest and dearest, and I am a little late getting this video out, so I apologize for that. I needed to settle myself, and I tried doing this reading late last night. I was just unable to tap into my ability to actually talk about the cards. I was just really exhausted. But I am not any longer. And so here I am with this quite interesting reading. You may be feeling the shift in the Saturnian energy. We talked about that in previous weeks, that we were in sort of a standstill in terms of time, as Saturn was in its shadow coming out of retrograde. And this is the week when it comes out of that shadow and the acceleration is palpable. And I think all of us are feeling a little bit apprehensive and a little on edge as a result of this shift, because we've gotten so used to being sort of anchored in perhaps the comfort of not thinking that things would actually change. It seems like everything was telling us that things were going to change, things were on the verge of massive upheaval, and yet nothing was actually happening. Of course, the problem is with change is that very often it takes place as a process that is not measurable in real time. It's only with hindsight that we actually become aware of what those changes have been and how they've manifested, particularly when it comes to internal revolutions. Mercury will be going direct, also still in shadow, but it will be going direct this coming week on the 20th of November. This will also probably give an added emboldened effect of the wheels spinning forward, and we may suddenly find ourselves sort of unraveling from a tightly wound control mechanism, and the freedom can feel as exhilarating and intoxicating as it can be, what's the word, disorienting. And so be prepared to maybe feel a little bit out of control after being in these very controlled energies, and enjoy the ride, because we are coming out of what has been the most pivotal week of 2019, and possibly in a very long time. And as we move towards the Jupiter-Venus conjunction at the galactic center, we will be moving into the lasting effects of our next karmic journey. On that note, let's get right into the reading. This week, our underlying energies are the Empress, nice amount of fertility and forward movement and richness and abundance there. And it was clarified by the Justice card. So, my feeling about this week is that what we're really going to start to notice consciously in ourselves is how much we have shifted from our sense of lack in whichever part of our lives that may be, a lack of love of others, a lack of love of self, a lack of feeling free and present, a lack of a sense of direction. There are obviously many other facets to it that you may personally be experiencing the shift from, but those are the things that I'm picking up on as being predominant of these energies. Having the Empress, as the underlying energy is also, to me, a shift towards the power and empowerment of the divine feminine energies. And I'll tell you why. Because in our underlying past energy for this coming week, we have the world, the end of a cycle. We've talked about that. That is the end of this karmic cycle. It is the end of the fixed elements of the energies astrologically. And it was clarified by the Emperor. So we have the Emperor to clarify the end of a cycle that is defined by the Empress, the Emperor's counterpart, as a present and future underlying energy, which tells me that we are moving from the divine masculine energies, very much enhanced by Mars energies of war and fighting and boundary setting and being in that state of feeling the need to prove ourselves on a macro and a micro level. And this is coming to an end. This is the end of that cycle. Every week we get new insights into what the cycle we're coming out of was symbolic of. And so I find it fitting that we would have further confirmation of exactly the oppositions that are shifting. It's like the poles shifting. That is what seems to be happening. We are moving into our more feminine side. So expect to have to do a little bit of homework as to what that represents in yourself. Do you really know how to define your female strength, your feminine, your divine feminine strengths? Or have you been conditioned as a result of the patriarchy to see feminine traits and the divine feminine as passive or weak? It's going to be very interesting to have that inner dialogue in order to come into a full understanding of just how lacking you may have been in this past karmic cycle when it came to feeling empowered in your feminine energies. Further confirmation of the end of this cycle came as the Ten of Swords appeared reversed. And thank goodness, because really that is essentially what the last few years have been, walking around with those 10 swords in your back. All these defining, edifying, and enlightening experiences that at the same time were heavy and cutting and really made us feel the need to remove aspects of ourselves rather than build aspects of ourselves. And we can now focus on the horizon ahead and put that behind ourselves and recognize that we've been in the process of removing those swords from our back. And it feels good to be lighter, right? Yes, it feels good to be lighter. Again, in continuing this storyline in our underlying past energies, we have the Five of Pentacles clarified by the Two of Cups. Now, what I found interesting about this is that we've talked a lot about this poverty consciousness leaving us, being in the position where we stop looking at our lives from a perspective of what we lack. And I think this may have a lot to do with this shift from the divine masculine to the divine feminine as the defining energy of our future karmic cycle. You know, the male emperor energy and the Martian energy, these are all very rooted in defensiveness, the need to protect what we have and who we want to be perceived as. And that for many of us who have neglected our divine feminine, or who have struggled to find ways to allow ourselves to express our divine feminine in the world, that is what has led to this poverty consciousness awareness, this sense that that we're lacking something fundamental in order to feel powerful in the world. And because it was clarified by the Two of Cups, which is essentially a card of union and of loving relationships, I feel like this is more telling us that the combined elements of divine masculine and feminine within are really ultimately, when in unison, when in harmony, these are what create love inside of us, which of course then in turn allows us to radiate that and to go out into the world and actually express ourselves lovingly. And when you really think about the things that have been lacking inside of you and the things that have defined you in terms of your strengths, you probably will find that a lot of those things kind of blocked your ability to feel self-love and to feel generous with your love with those around you. In this letting go of the poverty consciousness, of becoming whole, I think we're going to see a whole lot more kindness, loving kindness in ourselves and in those around us. Coming into our present energies, we have this week the Six of Swords clarified or coupled with the Six of Pentacles. The Six of Swords is a card of movement. It is also a card that delineates the strife from the calm, and we are moving from strife into calm. For some of us that is moving over waters literally, but because water, as we've discussed before in the tarot, is the representation of the subconscious mind, this can simply be that we are moving from cloudy, confused conflict within and around us to a sense of calm and a sense of smooth sailing in how we interact with our environment. Because it's coupled with the Six of Pentacles, which is a card of bountifulness, feeling that balance within ourselves in order to comfortably be generous of ourselves to others. Loving kindness is generosity. This all appears to be shifting in these current times. It'll be interesting to understand how that manifests, but I believe that each time we come to the end of one of these weeks, if we've been paying close attention to how we experience things, we notice that the people around us and are responding differently to us. And when those around us respond differently to us, that's because we are radiating something differently from within. And that is essentially what I think this is, moving from that combination, that fusion, that synergy of the masculine and feminine energies coming into last week's Wheel of Fortune. Perhaps is the shifting from the yin to the yang, or the yang to the yin in this case, into, you know, fortune being favored by the divine feminine in this new karmic cycle. Then we had the Ten of Wands, coupled with the Justice card. Justice card was what we had to clarify the underlying energies of the week, the Empress. So here we have it reinforced again. The Ten of Wands is the card of perhaps feeling a little overwhelmed. There may be, with these accelerating energies, a feeling of having a lot on your plate and having a lot to accomplish and not really having, maybe you've become very used to having a lot of downtime or a lot of time to really process your emotions or observe and have a longer internalization process. And this is going to be shifting. It's going to be, you're going to get shaken up a little bit in the sense that you won't have this luxury. You'll come to understand to what degree it was a luxury to have so much time to spend in self-reflection, because we're moving out of that part of our karmic journey into a period of action, and where the energies on the outside of us are having a much stronger influence on us than that internal process. Clarified by the Justice card, or coupled with the Justice card, this again speaks of this fundamental balance between those columns of light and dark, yin and yang. I mean, looking at our cards, we have so many balance elements in here. So it's really nice that we're coming into that sense of alignment. What I also want to say about the Ten of Wands is it's also about management, self-management, time management, how we handle things. It is, you know, this guy is walking along to his destination carrying these 10 wands, looking pretty exhausted and overwhelmed and burdened. But the reality is, how he goes about getting those wands to his destination is really a choice. He could put some of them down and make 2 journeys. He could carry 5 in one hand and 5 in the other and balance out his load. He could try carrying them in a different way, in some shape or form. So remember that sometimes we create our own sense of burden. And when we simplify things, when we break things down, there's usually a more effective and less taxing way of going about the things we need to accomplish. The Justice card would also indicate that we're coming into a time where our choices and decisions are favorable and being rewarded karmically. We then have the Magician card, clarified by the Five of Cups. Now, the Magician card is the reminder that we carry the strength of the alchemist within, that we have the four elements within. We have the wands, we have the cups, we have the pentacles, and we have the sword. And he carries a halo of the infinity symbol above his head, meaning that because of his egalitarian approach to carrying those four elements, he is in perpetual flow with the universe. With it being clarified by the Five of Cups, it's telling me that what we actually need to use this energy for in the present, so as not to find ourselves in that Ten of Wands burdensome feeling, is to be very mindful of how we process sorrow. And to be cautious about framing things as loss that aren't loss. What I have spent a lot of time thinking about in the last week is that I've moved around a lot in my life, and the people that I'm close to and that I love and that I have long history with, we've crossed paths and said goodbye many times, and I'm compelled to share the fact that I had this conversation just yesterday with my mother, and that is that it never gets easier to say goodbye. It always feels, I don't know, symbolically definitive in some shape or form. And yet, I can recall every single time that I've been through that separation anxiety, which of course is reinforced by old trauma patterns that we have in childhood of how we have experienced abandonment or separation or rejection or whatever it may be, or loneliness, you know. That is where the separation anxiety comes from. And how we manage that is going to be based on how well we have processed those aspects of trauma, childhood trauma, which nearly everybody has experienced some aspect of that. What is important to remember is that we have done a lot of work on ourselves, and so pay close attention to how you experience those feelings of separation or nostalgia, whatever it may be. You know, there's no need to stamp something with the broader strokes of depression or melancholy or loss. These are just sentiments to be observed, honored, and used as inspiration in our lives to have faith in connection, to understand the infinity within when it comes to our ability to connect with those that we already are connected to and those we have yet to connect with. In our future energies, we have the Two of Wands paired with the Eight of Pentacles. These came out together. The Two of Wands, this guy has the world in his hands and he's looking out ahead of him at what the options are. He's contemplating which option he wants to go after. And because he has the world in his hands, he's secure in his process. He knows that no matter what he chooses, it will be right for him because he holds that power within himself. So he has the faith that he goes with his magician qualities out into the world, and that whatever he manifests using those four elements is for his greater good, his expansion and evolution, and the expansion and evolution of those he encounters or who share his path. Because it's connected to the Eight of Pentacles, which is the card of work, of cultivating and harnessing talent and using it for productive causes. We are reminded that in the future there is going to be some work to be done, but that it's very, very important to stay within the realm of inspiration. Make sure that everything that we do comes from a place of inspiration. We have the power, that is what the magician tells us, and it's also what the Empress tells us with her fertility, that we have the power and the abundance within to manifest what we want with work and effort when we focus on the things that inspire us and fulfill us. So, we're going to be challenged in the next week to take a little bit more time to think about what those things are, and to make sure that we are tangibly focusing on those things and not on the background noise and the BS that our lower frequency programming has told us that we need to focus on. There is more to life than the humdrum buzzing of prescribed societal values that do not suit us. Remember that. Remember that. That is very, very key to this upcoming karmic cycle. You will be challenged in ways you don't want to be if you are not making that effort to stay inspired by what you are doing and to make choices that serve your greater good and the greater good of humanity within your own grasp. I mean, obviously we're not all revolutionaries and we're not all going to be like, you know, spending our lives like fighting, you know, on the picket lines for the environment and so on and so forth. Some of us don't have that luxury of time and focus, so, but we can all make a difference for the better if we tap into that self-love that we now have within us because we have let go of that Five of Pentacles poverty consciousness for good. And I know you have, because if you're watching this video, you've done that work. That you can guarantee. And this last week, the cosmic revolution that has taken place is something that you might not be aware of, but I know for a fact that even if you hadn't done most of the work over the last years, the 7 years since 2012, if you were awake this last week and you're watching this video, you jumped ahead. You made it further than a lot of other people. So pat yourself on the back for that, and be happy, and let that be infused into your metaphorical wings. It was clarified by the Ace of Cups. The Ace of Cups, again, is the card that denotes love and inspiration. And it is a divine gift of love that comes through this empowerment and this hard work. So I guess if we look at that as sort of an equation, it's saying to us that inspiration and empowerment with hard work leads to love. Makes sense, right? Then we have the Queen of Cups. The Queen of Cups being the divine feminine in her greatest emotional empowerment. She sits on that throne contemplating her emotional wealth, and she carries that emotional wealth in her cup, which is closed because she no longer feels the need to divulge to others the inner sequence of her emotional processes. If you think about it, when you're younger or less mature, and when you are less in alignment with your divine feminine and accepting of your divine masculine to be in flow with that emotional energy, we tend to sort of blurt our emotions out, to define ourselves by the insecurities in our emotional life, to define ourselves by our neuroses. These are unprocessed emotional I don't know how to express that. I was going to say chalices, so it is the idea that the cups represent these contained emotions. You know, we have a full spectrum of emotions, but when those emotions are contained and you can drink from them when you choose, that is sort of the goal that we all want to aim for in terms of self-mastery. She embodies that, so much so that she has one giant cup that is not so much a monument to her emotional journey, but a reminder of all the power that she contains. And it was clarified by the moon, which is the card of intuition. So this is the clarifier to remind us that the wealth of those emotions lies in the acceptance of intuition as being the conduit between the outside world and the inner world. We're moving into a time where intuition and let's just stick to intuition. Intuition is becoming the predominant language of this next karmic cycle. So take the time to think about that and what that means, because intuition is not just the feeling of whether or not we should walk into a dark tunnel, or whether or not a person has our best interests at heart. It informs every action, thought, development process. And when we are in deep alignment with our intuition, and we hear our intuition clearly, we flow in perfect balance. And where does that lead us to? Sort of the divine combination par excellence of the Hermit and the Star. We have seen these cards many times in the last few weeks of our readings. They came separate, and these came out together. And as we've discussed before, the Hermit, he's on a search for meaning and purpose, and he carries the Star in his lantern, and he's in acceptance of the subconscious process. The Star is now no longer in the lantern because it's been found. So we move into that energy of embodiment of the flow between the conscious and the subconscious mind, the balance of our seven chakras, the ability to be in peace and harmony with life's process, whatever it serves to us, whether it be a difficult challenge or a beautiful gift. We see both as the same. And it was clarified by the Nine of Pentacles. And the Nine of Pentacles is the card of self-sufficiency, of self-contentment, of being in the position where we have come into full alignment with ourselves, so much so that we are ready on the next part of our journey to allow the outside world to come back in. Because I think that a lot of us have spent the last 7 years of our lives shutting the world out bit by bit in order to do all of that hermit inner work, in order to eventually come out embodying the Star. And now that we have that on the horizon, of being in awareness of that and being in the flow, we can finally let the world back in. We can finally allow ourselves to start a new journey, a new karmic cycle, where we have new stories to tell. And I have no idea what those stories will be, but I look forward to sharing them with you via these videos. And I look forward to hearing yours. And here's to meeting lots of new people and having lots of new experiences. Moving on to our Spirit Animal Oracle card of the week, we got Antelope Spirit, and nothing could be more appropriate. We've never had that one before, and I'd never read it before, so when I did read it, I was like, makes sense. Antelope Spirit is about life speeding up, and it certainly will be. So here goes what the oracle message is. When Antelope Spirit rushes into your life, you are being reminded of the quickening of your personal evolution as a powerful co-creator. You are being told unequivocally that it's time to get moving. Set your intentions and take action toward making your dreams real. There is an intensity you can feel, and it is important to take advantage of this energy right now. If you have a plan for your career or financial abundance, now is the time to step it up. If you're asking about a relationship, make that first move. Just know that the intentions you have set in motion are coming together now at warp speed. Stay alert and keep up. Things are getting interesting when Antelope Spirit calls you to move quickly. The protection message, should you be struggling with the increase of the pace, is as follows. Do you feel how fast the world is changing, like everything is moving at warp speed? It's hard to control desired outcomes or set fixed goals because by the time you get there, you will eventually have moved beyond it. Now is the time to let go and enjoy the exhilarating ride as intentions you have set in motion in the past are coming into form with lightning speed. Your job is to stay the course even if the pace feels dizzying. You may find you will change your mind a half dozen times or more as you improve your offerings. And that is just fine. Make peace with the pace, for if you ride this quickening energy, you will solve challenges quickly and effortlessly instead of being bogged down. The best way to use this energy is to let go of worry and to stay mindfully present as you continue to take action. Also, if something is not going to be in your best interest, no matter how badly you want it, Antelope will quickly remove it so you can move toward what is truly meant for you. If something is taken away, be grateful and keep moving. This is not the time to sit still, but to breathe deeply as you move forward with velocity. And the whole time I was reading that, all I kept thinking to myself was that Antelope Spirit is essentially code for intuition, because intuition is what directs our pace. When we are in full alignment with our intuition, we move quickly because we trust. And we have to trust that what we are stepping out of in our lives is for the greater good, and that what we are stepping into is for the greater good of the progress of our life journey. And there's no such thing as a definitive goodbye. We just come into new circumstances and experience people as if our life were a novel, and there are as many chapters as there will be by the end of our life in this cycle, and characters come and go in novels. Only you are probably central to every single chapter in your book. And even then, sometimes there are side chapters where we don't even appear ourselves. Something to think about. And on that note, without sounding too cryptic, I will wish you a wonderful ongoing journey. And I hope that what we've talked about today feels tangible to you, and that you are reminded that we all go through these things together. There is a universality to the energies, and when we feel like we're having a little bit of a unsteady moment, or we are fearful, just be reminded that whether it be me or another of your friends or family members, there's always someone out there thinking of you and available to you for support and loving guidance. And then there's also your own spirit guides. Never forget them. And they are there to help you with your intuitive process. So, I wish you a wonderful week ahead, and I will see you on the flip side when I am back in California. I send you lots and lots of love, and I wish you a wonderful, wonderful, enlightening process.
Through the back door, he won't be coming around no more for circle, only